The sad fact is that in the US, it is a minority that comprises the African American population. Mm-hmm. In South Africa, the majority is the African population. And to speak of a month just doesn't make sense. What we should actually be doing is looking at why we do not have African history in our school curriculum in an unfettered way, not tainted by any narrow political bias like has been in the past. Previous history books during the apartheid era gave rise to the total misinformation that the Mulders of this world, for instance, have about our historic position in this country. So we need to actually look at where we're at as we leave our teens as a nation. Sure. We are an abnormal society, and one of those abnormalities that's stark is we do not teach ourselves, our children, our future, where we come from, what brought us here into this non-racial democracy, and that we will pay for in the future.
Again, I want to take a step back and talk about the relevance of African history within and you say it must be taught within the curriculum. How relevant is it, given where we are today globally? I mean, there are probably more important things to teach our children.
But I think we're the only country in the world that doesn't do this. Every other country in the world, to my knowledge, actually teaches their history proudly, where the country is at that particular time, what brought events to a pass at that time. We're the only country that doesn't have this. And there must be a question asked. Why don't we have this? Are we ashamed of that past? What are we afraid to reveal through that historicity?
Dr. Mangena, let me bring you in. Is there an issue then as a result of us not teaching children within the curriculum our history? Some people may look at this ongoing saga about Peter Mulder and the history in South Africa, whether or not Bantus were in the Northern Cape and the North and the Western Cape and so on, and say, well, that's exactly the reason why we need to teach our people history.
Well, not really so much, because Melda has said the kind of nonsense that he has said. Because if we are to follow that, then he has absolutely no platform to mouth whatever he is mouthing. He will end up in Holland. And so what is the relevance of what he is saying? But I think fundamentally we should teach our own history. Firstly, the history of our country, that is South Africa, and then the history of Africa before we go to the history of the world. And what has been taught in the past has been some kind of negative history as far as black people are concerned, because it starts with the arrival of white people, Jan van Riebeeck, and the wars that were fought and so on. But there is no positive history of this country, and then connecting it to the rest of the continent to teach ourselves and our children where we come from. You will be amazed to find that young people growing up today, some of them are in their 20s now. When you talk to them about the Dompas, they don't know what it is. They don't know black people have had a Dompas. You think it is crazy, but it is in fact true. We were talking. We encountered some black people and young people, and we were having conversations, and they were saying, "What is that?" So it is terribly important that we should teach our history as the mainstream, so that all our people, whether they are going to be scientists or they are going to be whatever else they are going to be in adult life and in occupation, they should know where they come from.
All right, well, I'll open the line straight away here, because clearly we would want to hear what people have got to say on 0891 104 209. In fact, 0891 104 289. Please just give us a call. Tell us what you think about this. A couple of SMSs have come through. Somebody says the mistake this government did after 94 was to embrace the history which was written by and to please colonizers of this country. We should have banned everything back then that's pure in KZN. Do you agree with that, Dr. Cooper?
Well, I think that that history was a bastardization of what really happened. And what we should have done is we've had enough historians. We've had enough historians that are more appropriate in their fact finding, because history is about fact. It's opinion that I'm giving, for instance. And historians provide facts. So those facts need to be put out there, because some of that, it's like what Mosibudi Mangena is mentioning, the past. Now, that has been part of this country's terrible, ignominious history. And to just obliterate any memory of it, any talk of it, is almost like denying that it happened. And we need to get over pacifying those who were in control in the past. We need to get over pacifying the Milders of this world, the old Nats in new guises in this world. We need to actually present what happened to us throughout the different epochs and connect that with the rest of the world. Of course, to connect it with the continent. And we know that besides South African Airways now beginning to connect us to different capitals in the continent, we've previously had to travel via other places to get even next door. And that is the reality of colonialism in Africa.
And for now, we're just specifically talking about South African history. We're not even getting into African history then, the continental history, Dr. Cooper?
Yes.
Our knowledge of the continental history.
No, and that is the terrible shame, that we don't have a location for ourselves, for our kids. It's as if 94 just happened spontaneously and then the rest followed. We don't have precursors. I mean, this year, we're celebrating the 100th anniversary of the oldest liberation movement, the ANC, and some of the facts presented are new, because most of us are unaware of those facts. Now, if we had grown up knowing these facts through different kinds of media, through classroom education, we would be better informed. If we go to our bordering countries, they are steeped in their history, old colonial, pre-colonial, and current history. So they are well located. They have a rounded education. Unlike us, we may have a lot of PhDs out there, but are we educated?
Dr. Mangena, again, the question is this by design or is this by default? And I'm talking specifically after 94, from 94 up until now.
It's both. It's by design, because those, you see, there is this cliche that history is written by the victors.
True.
And so all along the history that we learned at school and that was generally available is the history as written by those who conquered us. And after 1994, we should have seen the reversal of that situation, and so in that sense there was a default, because we didn't go out to then write a positive history about ourselves. And as Saths says, we have got historians who can then with freedom go out there and put the facts in our history books, such that our young and all of us might have a better understanding of ourselves and where we come from and why Africa is the way it is. Because unless you have an understanding of history, you will not understand why we are the way we are. Why is it that, say, in this country, for example, black people are the poorer, the minorities rich? Why the rest of the continent it is the way it is? African Americans have undertake pilgrimages to places like Senegal, to Gore Island, to Ghana, and so on, to try and understand their roots. How did they come to end up where they did, and what was the process, and so on. And then they understand their people. They have roots, and they are better people than if they didn't know. We are just here. Gore Island and Angola and so on are nearer to us than than they are to Americans. But how many South Africans know about the slave trade and the Gore Island as the gateway into the big seas, and that landed many of our people in the Caribbean and in the US and in Europe. Many of us don't know that, so we don't know our continent, and so we don't know our people.
Just very quickly, though, before I go to the lines again, Dr. Mangena, I just, people will say, well, how does it make you a better person to know all the history that you say we must know? I mean, what does it change? How does it enhance the person that you are?
Well, it gives you a perspective. It anchors you. And people who do not know where they come from. I mean, I know I'm Mosibudi Mangena, and I know where my parents are and where they came from and what did they do and so on, and my sisters and uncles and so on. It situates me somewhere. It is the same with populations, with groups, with countries. They situate themselves through history, through the understanding of where they come from, and it is not something that is linear, that you say my history it is like this, therefore I will be like that. It doesn't follow, but it gives a country and a people a psyche and a direction and a knowledge of themselves, and only if they know themselves will they be able to chart a better way forward for themselves.